Oop, there I am. Hello, can anybody see me? Can you hear me? Yes, yes. Excellent. Okay, I think we're all good then. Hoping audio levels are okay. Just trying to get everything organized on my screen here. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Okay, so here we are. And it's Thursday too. Sorry I missed Tuesday this week. Been trying to stay consistent with all of the streaming and everything every week, trying to do it Tuesday around the same time every week, but work schedule was a little bit busier this week, so I didn't really get a chance on Tuesday. So I'm making up for it today. And yeah, so welcome to Videodrone Live. DisRegarding Henry here, and we're going to talk about some movies. I always get so nervous when these things start. It takes me a while to relax into it. Okay, so yeah, it looks like the chat is working. I had a problem with that last week. Okay, so I guess we'll just get started then. Alright, so we'll start with the movie of the week. I haven't gotten a chance to watch too many movies this week. Like I said, been working a little bit more. So yeah, didn't get a chance to watch too much stuff. And actually, maybe something I could share with you. When was it? Sunday night, I think it was. Yeah, my vehicle actually got stolen. That's the first time anything like that has ever happened to me. I was going to work early the next morning, so I was trying to get to sleep, and my brother, who usually works late, shows up, gets home late, comes in and says, "Hey, where's your car? It's not parked out front." And I go out and I look, and it's just gone. It's gone, and I don't know what happened to it. And yeah, that's the first time I've ever had to deal with anything like that. I guess I've been pretty lucky up to this point in my life. Yeah, I've never had to deal with a major theft or a break-in or anything. But yeah, so that was interesting, surprising. That's never a fun thing to have happen to you. But I guess, as far as things like this go, it probably worked out as well as it could have. Because yeah, I called the police, made my report, and yeah, and there's not much you can do in a situation like that, you know. You just kind of file the report, and the police just say like, okay, if we find it, we'll let you know, and if not, sorry. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but luckily they actually did end up finding it that same night. And yeah, I called my parents. My dad gave me a lift. It was on like the outskirts of town. It was found just like parked in front of somebody's house. It had like a car battery thrown in the back and a tent. And they found like a cell phone and gloves and sunglasses in it, and of course drug paraphernalia, which yeah, and don't really have much experience with that either. So yeah, really just a whole new experience for me. But yeah, I don't know what whoever took it was planning on doing with it, but looks like they found it in time, and then yeah, got all that cleaned up out of there, drove it back home, and yeah, I was really nervous going to pick it up too, because my dad, he's a car guy. He owns an auto shop, auto repair shop, and parts store. He's been an auto mechanic pretty much his whole life, and I was asking him like, what are we gonna find? Like, how much is this gonna cost? Yours or somebody else's drug paraphernalia? Somebody else's, not mine. But yeah, I'm asking him like, so what kind of damage can I expect? How much is this gonna cost? And he's telling me, yeah, they probably broke a window, they probably broke the ignition open. It's probably gonna cost you at least a couple $100s. And anybody who's followed this channel knows like I'm prone to like anxiety and depression, stuff like that. So, I guess since it was so late when this happened, I was kind of just so tired. I didn't really have the energy to work myself up. So in my mind, when he's talking about like, yeah, it's probably going to cost you a couple $100, it's just like, I'm just too tired and just thinking like, oh, great. How am I going to deal with this? How am I going to deal with this? I'm not going to be able to afford this right now. But then, yeah, thankfully, miraculously, when I picked up the car, there were no windows broken. The ignition wasn't broken. So I don't know how they got it, how they got into it, how they started it, but it was fine. Aside from gaining a few interesting new smells, everything was pretty much as I left it, and I didn't have anything valuable in there. So yeah, I guess if something like this had to happen, this was probably the best way it could have happened. So if I can be thankful in a situation like that, I guess yeah, I'm thankful that yeah, I got away from this whole thing pretty much as painlessly as I could have. So that's good. And it's back, and unfortunately now, I guess because of the area I live in, break-ins are pretty common, and my vehicle may be a target now, since whoever took it knows it's an easy one to get into, so it might happen again. I hope it doesn't, but I guess there's only so much you can do in situations like that. What kind of car do you drive? A Mustang? I don't drive a Mustang. I don't know what it is. It's like a Nissan or something. It's a pickup truck. It used to be, when my dad owned his auto shop, it was his delivery truck that he would run parts to people with. And then once he got a new delivery truck, I got the old one, which was very nice of him. I appreciate that. But yeah, I really don't know anything about cars or anything like that. It's just something to drive. I'm hoping, yeah, when I move to Portland eventually, I can just use public transportation. I really don't want to own a vehicle, like insurance and repairs and gas and oil, all of that. I hate dealing with that. I'd rather not own a car. But in the area I live in, it's necessary to get back and forth between places to the job, stuff like that. But yeah, so that was a whole new experience for me, and I guess yeah, I'm hoping it doesn't happen again anytime soon. That's no fun to deal with. Okay, so other than that, yeah, I watched a few movies over the last week, but there's one that I really wanted to talk about, and that is Alfonso Cuaron's Gravity. Where do you live now? I just live in a small coastal town in Oregon. It's called Coos Bay. Just a little coastal working class town. I've lived here pretty much my whole life. Not a lot here in terms of like art and film and cinema stuff, so that's why I'm kind of eager to get somewhere else. But yeah, just trying to save up money to do that. It can take some time. But yeah, so I wanted to talk about Alfonso Cuaron's Gravity. This was one that I had seen back when it came out in 2013. I'm pretty sure is when it came out. It was one I was really excited for when it did come out, because I still am a huge Alfonso Cuaron fan. Children of Men, I still think is one of the best movies ever made. Children of Men, you can still watch that today, and it's still so incredible. Visually, it's incredible. The story, the themes it tackles, it's a masterpiece, an absolute masterpiece. And that was one that, especially at that time, that I was watching quite a bit. I was obsessed with it, yeah, looking at all the tracking shots and, yeah, the really complex visual storytelling throughout that whole film. And I think, was that Cuaron's last one? I can't remember if anything came between Gravity and Children of Men. Maybe one of the Harry Potter movies, but I've never seen the Harry Potter movies, so yeah, I'm not too familiar with all of that. But yeah, when I saw like the first footage that was released of Gravity and how yeah, they were doing these really complicated long takes, integrating all of this cutting edge CGI. What an incredible technological breakthrough it was. It took him like 4 years to make it. I was really excited for it, and the bits I was seeing, the trailers, I thought looked amazing. And of course, the hype that was building up for it, the reaction to it, the reviews were just glowing. And James Cameron said it was the best space movie he'd ever seen. I was really excited for it. So I saw it in theaters in 3D. And I gotta say, the first time seeing it, I was kind of underwhelmed. I think my expectations had been built up so highly that I'm not sure what I was expecting. Maybe just a more visceral experience. I maybe wasn't expecting so much dialogue and character. I kind of just wanted it to be just go, 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 relentlessly nonstop. But it's not quite that. It's not quite just a nonstop action film. You know, it's also which something I'll talk about in a little bit here, but it's also it's a metaphor. It's a metaphorical journey, which I have to admit was something I totally missed the first time I saw it, and I didn't really become aware of it until watching it a second time, and watching the special features on the Blu-ray and hearing Alfonso Cuaron and all of the people involved talking about it and breaking it down and what story they were really trying to tell with this movie. So I guess expectations can often lead you to expect one certain thing from a movie, and if it's not quite that, you can be disappointed by it. I think that's why the book is always better than the movie, because you read the book, you picture a very specific movie in your head, and then you see the movie, you see something that is different from what you pictured, and I guess it can be a little jarring. It can lead you to be very disappointed that it wasn't really what you were expecting, what you were picturing in your head. And so that can sometimes be a little difficult to work past, especially if you get really excited for something, if it gets really hyped and you're seeing like, oh, it's at like 98% on the tomato meter, like, oh, this is going to be great. So it was interesting to revisit Gravity without all of those expectations, without all of that hype, and to just sit back and just watch it as a movie, just try to look at it on its own terms. And the second time, I actually liked it much, much more. And I think was able to appreciate it much more on its own terms, that it was this metaphorical journey of a character's rebirth, that it wasn't just simply a non-stop space action movie. That is one thing I really appreciated, is how simple it is, that it's just 90 minutes, basically just one kind of simple situation. An astronaut is stranded in space, has to make her way back to Earth. That's it. And the whole thing more or less plays out in real time, so it's very immediate. You're just going from moment to moment to moment, and it condenses time, of course, but you never have any fades or, jump cuts or anything like that saying, okay, now we're jumping forward in time. You pretty much watch the whole thing progress from beginning to end as just one continuously developing situation, which is very exciting and very immediate. And of course, the really long flowing takes that Cuaron uses really gives you a sense of actually experiencing it just from second to second, breathlessly. And it's incredibly well done. And I was able to appreciate that much more watching it the second time, too. What an incredible technical achievement it was. Watching the making of on the Blu-ray was really eye-opening as well. It's one of those cases where the making of for the movie is actually longer than the movie itself, because this thing was so complicated. It took so long. It took so many people. It took so much time and resources to actually make this thing happen. It's amazing when you really put it into perspective and you see how much work went into it, what an unprecedented technical achievement this film was at the time, and how much work really did go into it. How difficult it was for the special effects people, how difficult it was for Sandra Bullock. There pretty much wasn't a day where she wasn't in some kind of complicated harness or rig or something like that to simulate the zero-G. And just how I can't even really begin to even conceive of how to make a movie like that, where you're just getting bits and pieces, and it's like what you're doing on set is not going to even be anywhere close to what the final film is going to look like when they add in backgrounds and they add in costumes. Like most of the time, like the space suits and the visors on the helmets, all of that is added in post-production with CGI. There's not a single frame in the movie that hasn't been digitally enhanced or manipulated or something in some way. It's just the technology in this film is so integrated into everything that it is, into every single moment. It's amazing when you realize just how deep it goes. Like, yeah, that not even the visors were actually there. That, like, most of the costumes that you see, the spacesuits weren't even actually there. Just, like, props you see in the background weren't actually there. It's incredible. And, how they took all of these different pieces, put them all together to create these long shots. How some of those shots, like the opening shot of the film, which is incredible, it's like it goes on for like 13 minutes, how that took just years and years on its own just to do that. It's amazing. You have to be somebody like Cuaron and have such a strong, specific vision and know exactly how to communicate that to this whole team that you've put together, and to make it happen. And you have to have patience, and you have to be determined, and you have to never lose sight of what it is you're trying to create in your head. It's pretty incredible. And yeah, the metaphorical aspects of the story were really something I wasn't that aware of until I watched the making of and heard Cuaron break it down. And then suddenly it seemed so obvious that, yeah, it is about rebirth. It's about spiritual rebirth, about a character who has essentially lost her will to live. And space acts as the metaphor, that void, that darkness that she's trying to pull herself away from and put herself back on Earth, to push back against death, against the void, against depression and hopelessness, and find a reason to continue, to push forward, to live. That, it's not just a straightforward action suspense film, it's also a metaphor for rebirth. I feel like I'm just restating stuff over and over again, but yeah, it's pretty brilliantly constructed when you really do examine it in that way. And all of the imagery that is layered into the film, the scene where she finally gets inside the space station and she pulls off the spacesuit and she's just kind of floating there like she's in a womb, like a fetus floating in a womb, that it's safe. There are certain images in there that are overwhelmingly powerful. Like when you first see her floating off into space, and you really get a sense of just how overwhelmingly big space is, and how you're really putting yourself into that situation, and you're thinking like, God, that is overwhelmingly terrifying. How do you even wrap your head around that, of just floating in a void and being, I think there's video output low. Okay, it looks like there's some problem with the stream, but I'm going to keep going. Hope it all turns out okay. Getting some comments here too. I sort of avoided Gravity when it came out because the marketing made it seem a little too gimmicky. When I finally caught up to it, I was really impressed by it. I need to stop listening to marketing. Yeah, sometimes they'll try to sell it as one thing when it's actually another thing. But that's marketing, Stream was offline for a second. Okay. I'm hoping we're all okay now. Script is dull, nothing special. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think the script is probably the weakest aspect of Gravity. I got to admit, when it gets to the dialogue scenes, I can feel it start to drag a little bit. I think when it's visual, when you're just seeing the Sandra Bullock character floating off into the void of space, when you're seeing her struggling to get to this place or to do this or that, when she has a specific goal in mind that she's trying to achieve, I think it works really well. And in the scenes where she's just kind of speaking to herself and they're developing the character and the backstory and stuff like that, I don't think it's as good. I think those are the weaker sections of the movie, admittedly. I wouldn't say Gravity is as good as something like Children of Men, where everything about that movie was so strong. Script, characters, performances, direction, cinematography, everything about it was amazing. Gravity really is spectacular, mainly in its direction, in its technological achievement. As a script, yeah, I agree that it does have its weaknesses, but I wouldn't say it's dull. I wouldn't say it's a bad script. It's just maybe the script is not quite as spectacular as the way the script is brought to life. That's really what's so spectacular about Gravity. And especially one thing that really struck me watching it the second time too is how Cuaron really does immerse you in that zero gravity environment, how he really makes you forget there's an up or a down or a left or a right. The way he stages it, the way he films it and choreographs it, it really, makes you lose sense of orientation, of gravity, of weight. And that final moment, spoilers if anybody hasn't seen it, but that final moment when the Sandra Bullock character does finally make it back to Earth, and even when she does, like, she's underwater, so still there's a sense of weightlessness. It's not until she finally gets back on land and plants her feet that all of that sense of gravity and weight just comes back to you. And you really feel like when she pushes herself up, this incredible sense of weight, of, this physical sense of gravity. You feel like the weight of your own body, like, whew, now we're back on solid ground, and we're not just floating through air. There's a down again. There's an up and a down, and we're back on Earth. It wasn't just like an emotional impact. Like, watching it actually had a real physical impact on me. Watching her push herself up, and I suddenly felt the weight of my own body watching that. It was really terrific. Not a lot of movies really have that kind of physical impact on me, just where the act of watching them actually makes me feel something in my own body. So I was very impressed by that. The movie, I think, really does have an effect. It really is something spectacular, I think. And it has its weaknesses. It's not a perfect movie, but I think in a lot of ways it is something really special. It is kind of a watershed achievement in integrating storytelling, filmmaking, and new forms of technology, digital, CGI, practical. It's a mix, not quite like anything we've ever seen before, at least I think. Watching it a second time, I was even more impressed by it. Now here comes the point in the stream early on, this time, where I have to plug my computer in. All right. Yeah, so I really liked it, and I'd recommend if any of you watching happened to have missed it when it originally came out, or if you were kind of like me and you really got into the hype of it, building up to it, and were a little disappointed, I think going back to it, it's you can really view it a bit more objectively, I think, and really see what a spectacular film it is. And again, it's got its flaws, I'll admit that. But I think just as a visceral visual experience, it's pretty incredible and really shows, like most of Cuaron's films, that he really is a virtuoso, a visual virtuoso. The way he can conceive of shots, sequences, and the way he can choreograph movement and camera, it's incredibly fluid. Incredibly elegant. It's really just poetry in motion. And I think I really look forward to what Cuaron does next. And I've heard it's something really different. Because he does Children of Men, which is this post-apocalyptic, or not post-apocalyptic, this dystopian sci-fi thriller. And then Gravity, which is set in space. It's a sci-fi action suspense movie. His next one, I understand, is just like a drama about spending I think a decade or so in the life of like an average Mexican family. So I want to say that's going to be different for him, but then I think back to the beginning of his career and stuff like Y Tu Mama Tambien or Solo con tu pareja, I think is his first one. I apologize for my awful Spanish pronunciation. But that'll be interesting to see if he decides to do something really technically complex with that, or if he decides to do something more simple. But yeah, I get really excited every time I watch a Cuaron film. He's just so incredibly talented and innovative. He's a visionary. Gravity has great visuals and effects. Martian has a good script. If Gravity had that kind of quality script, it would be one of the best sci-fi movies. Yeah, that might have been part of what my initial disappointment with Gravity was, too, is that I wanted it to be one of the best sci-fi movies I had ever seen. It's not quite that. But again, I think it definitely has its strengths. It definitely is something that I think demands to be seen. What's your opinion on Blue Velvet? I guess this could kind of go into the theme of the stream today. I'm kind of experimenting a little bit. Normally I go into these just kind of with a film of the week in mind and maybe discuss a director or something. I kind of want to have had do you know some Spanish? That's a pretty accurate accent. I did take Spanish in high school, so I know a little bit, so I appreciate that. Every time I'm trying to say something in a different language, though, it always sounds awful to me, but thank you. So what was I saying? Blue Velvet, but okay, so yeah, I wanted to have a little bit of a theme for this week, to try something a little bit different, and somebody sent a comment. I have it right here. Age J94, if I'm saying that right. As a possible topic for another stream, what are some of your unpopular film opinions where you seem to be especially going out on a limb? A personal example is I really dislike Pacific Rim, but everyone around me seemed to really enjoy it, and I can't figure out if I'm just not seeing something or I was correct in my original assessment. I thought that'd be an interesting topic for a stream. I'm from Spain. I'd love to hear something. I might try some Spanish in a second. I just don't want to lose my train of thought here. But yeah, I thought that'd be an interesting topic for a discussion, and to kind of see what some of the people watching, what maybe some of your unpopular film opinions are. Because yeah, I think a lot of us, a lot of the time, can just kind of, it can be a scary thing to sometimes go against the grain, and if a film is especially beloved or especially hated, then yeah, it can sometimes be a difficult thing to say, I didn't like that movie, or I did like that movie. I'm certainly, I've got my film opinions that I'm always having to defend with people, so I thought it'd be kind of a fun thing to talk about. I will own this topic. I'm going to have to resist spamming all my unpopular opinions. Yeah, we all have a few, don't we? And I guess David Lynch kind of fits into that, because I guess whereas, understandably, a lot of people are really, really big fans of Lynch, I am somebody who, I guess for most of his films, I haven't really enjoyed them so much. Blue Velvet I like. I don't think it's great, but it does have some good stuff in it, especially Dennis Hopper. I mean, he's great in it, and there are some great sequences, especially the Dean Stockwell scene where he sings into the light, the use of Roy Orbison in Dreams, that song. There's a lot of great moments in it, but I don't know, it's not one that I find myself especially moved by or especially invested in. And I feel that way with a lot of Lynch's stuff. Like Lost Highway I didn't really get into. Inland Empire I didn't really get into. Wild at Heart, Twin Peaks, I don't know. I know a lot of people love Twin Peaks. I've never really been that crazy about it. But he has made films that I do really love, like Eraserhead I think is great. Mulholland Drive I think is great. But, and The Straight Story is one that I really like, and The Elephant Man I really enjoy too. So he's got a few that I think are great, and I think he is a really unique filmmaker with his own particular style. So I admire and respect that he does things his own way. But unfortunately, a lot of his work, I'm trying to search for the right way to say this. I don't find it really that engaging. I don't know. It seems kind of self-indulgent a lot of the time, especially something like Inland Empire. Just, I don't know. When he's really doing it right, like Mulholland Drive or Eraserhead, then it's great. But if it's not quite there, then yeah, it can be really excruciating trying to watch one of his movies, at least for me personally. Yeah, and I feel like that is a kind of an unpopular opinion, because it seems like if people like David Lynch, they love him, they worship him. I'm not quite at that level, but he has done films that I like. Blue Velvet is my least favorite Lynch of the ones I've seen. Okay, so seems there are some like-minded people out there. Always found the film Natural Born Killers kind of underrated. I do too. I think Natural Born Killers is a great movie. I think it's one of Oliver Stone's best movies. And yeah, it seems like a lot of the modern day reaction, I guess at the time too, it was really polarizing. There were people that hated it and people that loved it. And it seems even today reaction tends to be pretty split. But I'm definitely on the side that thinks it's a really brilliant deconstruction of sensationalized media and the worship of crime, criminals, serial killers. That it's a really great social satire and an incredible visual experience. I'm a big Oliver Stone fan. He's a controversial one. Some people really don't like his stuff, but I've always really admired it, and Natural Born Killers has long been one of my favorites of his. One of mine is how much I dislike Star Wars, all of them. Yeah, I could definitely go on for Star Wars. I could definitely go on about Star Wars for a while. And the Indiana Jones series, yes, I think the Indiana Jones are very mediocre to bad. Okay. Yes, I did get into Eraserhead. Star Wars, yeah, I don't hate Star Wars. I definitely think those movies are a little bit overrated. But I think at a certain point, once something like that becomes a really big cultural phenomenon, it becomes more than just being about a film. It becomes about something bigger. It becomes about like a sense of community. I think Star Wars has definitely reached that level where it is about something more than just the films themselves. But as movies, yeah, the Star Wars films, they're good. They're not bad. But I don't think they're great. I think really the reason those movies are so popular are because of the toys and the merchandising. Star Wars was really the first series to have like a big merchandising tie-in with all of it, and it created this unique world where, yeah, you could turn every character, every little thing into a toy. And I think for a lot of people, especially today, their introduction to Star Wars, I know my introduction to Star Wars was, yeah, being a kid and playing with the toys and playing the video games and stuff like that. And then you discover the movies through the toys, through the merchandising and stuff like that. I might be wrong there, but yeah, I don't think Star Wars would be quite what it is today without permeating into the culture as much as it did through t-shirts, games, toys, posters, books, comic books, all this other stuff. That really, I think, helped build it into more of a phenomenon than just simply a film franchise. But Indiana Jones I like. I do really love the Indiana Jones movies. Let's see here. Oh, somebody disagrees. Whoa, Inland Empire is Lynch's best. Okay, so some disagreement there. Blue Velvet is, this is another comment, Blue Velvet is my personal favorite. My unpopular opinion is that Psycho by Hitchcock is overrated and that he has better. The Wrong Man is underrated. Okay. I have yet to come across any films more boring than any Alfred Hitchcock films. Okay, now this is something I could definitely talk about because I mentioned this in a video a month and a half ago. Like directors I thought were... Crank is one of the best films ever made. I don't know that I agree with that, but that's certainly an interesting statement. There's a lot of discussion to be had there. But I'm going to keep on Alfred Hitchcock for now. But yeah, when I was asked about filmmakers that I thought were overrated or underrated, Hitchcock was one that I brought up as somebody that I do personally think is overrated. I have never really seen an Alfred Hitchcock movie that really invested me emotionally, that really drew me into the story, that made me care about the characters. Yeah, my experience with pretty much every Alfred Hitchcock movie I've seen is that I've been left cold, that I have been, most of the time, bored by them. Certainly by something like Vertigo, which I guess this is an especially unpopular opinion because Vertigo was recently voted by the film magazine Sight and Sound as the greatest film ever made. And I don't think I could disagree with that more, because every time I've watched it, I have been so disinterested. I have been so bored by it. I really don't see what so many other people seem to see in that movie, or in Hitchcock's work in general. Yeah, he's so technically minded. He's so, I guess, methodical in the things that he does. He's so specific about, first we have this shot, then we have that shot, and to me it seems like filmmaking is more of an intellectual process for him rather than an emotional process. So every time I watch one of his movies, I don't get a sense of any emotion being communicated. I don't get a sense of that the characters are really spontaneous people, that they're just kind of trapped in this controlled vision that really drains the energy out of it. It's so assembled, it's so cold, it's so distant. That's the reaction I get from Hitchcock's work when I watch it. I have seen some that I like more than others. Like Psycho is one that I enjoy, especially for Anthony Perkins's performance, which really conveys a lot of specific personality. I think that's a very great performance in Psycho that Anthony Perkins gives. But then other sections in Psycho, with a lot of the Janet Leigh stuff where she's just driving her car and thinking in her head, and other bits, where they're trying to figure out, like with the sister, I think, and the private investigator. It's like, I don't get invested in those characters. I don't really care who they are, what they're doing. There's a lot of really cheesy stuff, I think, in it, like when the guy falls backwards down the stairs. I don't know how that would be possible. And the rear projection isn't really convincing in that sequence. So, I do honestly think Hitchcock is overrated. I've just personally never been able to get into his work or really find a lot to admire. But as I've said before, I try to always remain open and curious in regards to art and cinema. And so every time I read, somebody talking about Hitchcock, how he's one of the greatest and what the things that they see, I'm always interested in trying to figure out what it is that they see that I'm missing. And so I'm sure he'll be one that I'll probably constantly be going back to and just trying to see, is there something here that I'm just not quite grasping, or is it just that I think his movies are bad? I'm really not sure. And some people are talking about The Wrong Man. I think if I'm not mistaken, I think that's the one about the priest who a killer confesses a crime to him, and he has to no, that's I Confess. Okay, yeah, so I'm thinking of the wrong one. But I'm pretty sure I Confess, Guillermo del Toro said that was his favorite Hitchcock. So that's one I'm kind of curious to see. I've never seen that one before. I've never seen The Wrong Man, so that's one I should probably check out. There's a lot of his movies that I haven't seen. That's why I do think it is important to remain open and curious, because you never know when you might finally get it, when something might just suddenly click and oh, now I see why this is so great. That's certainly something that happened. Oh no, I was going to say Wes Anderson, but some people in the comments are mentioning Paul Thomas Anderson. But Wes Anderson was one that that happened for me. I just didn't get it. His movies were really strange and off-putting and kind of annoying to me for the longest time. And then finally something clicked and I suddenly got it. And now, I love his films. But I remember the first time watching Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, Royal Tenenbaums, all of those. I did not like them. And now, suddenly, I understand the humor. I understand yeah, the way he tells a story, the kinds of things he's trying to communicate with the characters, and I get it now, and I love his movies. So sometimes it can be a process of discovery, watching certain films by certain filmmakers. Paul Thomas Anderson is undoubtedly the greatest working American filmmaker. He's pretty great. Respect your opinion on Vertigo, one of my all-time favorites. So I'm just trying to scan through the comments right now before I really get into the next piece of discussion. Vertigo is one of my least favorite Hitchcock films. I do love Hitchcock overall, though. Okay, so yeah, I seem to be in a minority here, in my feelings on Hitchcock. North by Northwest is one of my favorite movies ever, but it's so dry. PTA is one of the best. I don't know if he's at the top. Don't think there is one best. I would agree with that. Yeah, I'm somebody who is I've tried and I just can't seem to really, like, I can't do top 10 lists of my favorite movies of all time. I've posted a few videos on my channel of like top 5 underrated horror films, top 5 films with unsimulated sex, which is still far and away my most popular video that I've ever posted. Sex sells, I guess. Yeah, people are sometimes all too predictable. But yeah, when I do those, it's mostly just to try and draw attention to films that I think are underseen or underrated. I don't really view them as being like definitively these are the 5 best films in whatever particular category. And yeah, I've never been able to decide like, oh yeah, these are the best filmmakers, these are the best films. Yeah, I'm just not good at doing that. But Paul Thomas Anderson is definitely somebody that I greatly admire. He's always somebody like, I always want to know what he's going to do next, because it's pretty much guaranteed that it's going to be something really unusual or really spectacular. I will say that recently, his latest, Inherent Vice, I did not like. I did not get that one. Yeah, I thought it was really rambling and unfocused, and I've never said this about a Paul Thomas Anderson movie before, because his movies can be really rambling and unfocused, but they're also, like with something like Magnolia or Boogie Nights, There Will Be Blood, The Master, they're rambling and at times unfocused, but they're always compelling. They're always absorbing. Inherent Vice was the one that I would say was just rambling and unfocused and dull. And yeah, that was the only time where I've really just wanted a Paul Thomas Anderson movie to just end already. I don't know, how the rest of you the rest of you saw it, felt about it, but that was my reaction to it. But still, he took a big chance making that movie, and it doesn't mean I'm not really excited to see what he does next, because you sometimes when you take chances, you can fall flat on your face, and that's just my opinion. I did think he failed with Inherent Vice, but it doesn't mean that his next film's going to be a failure. Trying to figure out the right way to say this. I'm sorry. But yeah, I admire that he does take chances, that he's not just trying to do like the Paul Thomas Anderson thing. He's not just trying to repeat Boogie Nights or repeat Magnolia. He's trying to do something really different with each film. And I'm sure with the next one, the one he's reteaming with Daniel Day-Lewis on, I'm sure that's going to be something, very different from anything else he's done before again. And I hope I enjoy this next one more than I enjoyed Inherent Vice. But I love filmmakers like that are always trying to push themselves forward, push themselves further. Even if I don't like the movies, I can still respect that. River's Edge is super underrated. I would definitely agree with that. River's Edge with Keanu Reeves and Crispin Glover and Dennis Hopper, another great Dennis Hopper performance. That is a really underrated movie. Really good. One of the first, really, I guess, honest youth films, that wasn't just like a juvenile delinquent film or like a beach party film. It was something that was really trying to examine what young people at that time were really like, and the things they were dealing with and the things they were feeling. And it's a very dark vision, but I think it really does get at something really honest. And yeah, it is just very compelling. Great performances all around. Really memorable characters, especially Dennis Hopper and Crispin Glover. Yeah, they're fantastic in that movie. River's Edge is really underseen. I think it's a little bit difficult to get a hold of, but yeah, if you can find it, it's really worth seeing. Okay, Wrong Man has Henry Fonda in it. Yeah, I've definitely not seen that one. Rear Window is my favorite Hitchcock. It's been too long since I've seen that one to really comment on it. I go into every PTA movie thinking it'll be one I don't like, and that it ends up being my new favorite. I think There Will Be Blood and Magnolia are bad, and Inherent Vice is PTA's best. That's very interesting. Yeah. You're the first person I've ever heard who does not like There Will Be Blood. Yeah, that's interesting, I gotta say. Yeah, There Will Be Blood? Really? You didn't like that one? That's... Daniel, I don't know how... With Daniel Day-Lewis's performance in that movie, I don't know how you could not like it, but yeah, I respect your opinion. Last Scene is great, but that's all I really got out of it. And I think it's structurally messy as hell. Yeah, Paul Thomas Anderson is definitely not somebody who tries to do the conventional methods of storytelling, but that's what I really like about it, is that he's more free-form, he's more experimental. I actually find that really exciting. But yeah, that's I think that is a personal taste thing. Let's see. Regarding why you didn't like Inherent Vice, Thomas Pynchon. Pynchon's work is love it or hate it. I love it. I read the book Inherent Vice before I saw the movie, and I actually really liked the book. That was the first Thomas Pynchon book I'd ever read, and I actually really enjoyed it. And the movie, I just thought, I think what makes Pynchon's book work is his way with words. It's his prose, it's his writing that is so compelling. And that can be a really difficult thing to translate. It's like trying to adapt like Naked Lunch or trying to think of another similar kind of writer, but somebody whose their way with words is very specific and not something you can really translate into images. It's how they put words together, how they put sentences together. You can't really translate that into a film so much. You can put the story there, you can put the characters there on screen, but without the words, it's not quite the same. Let's see. 5 to 9 years down the road, you were on the press circuit with your first feature, and the guy from DP30 asks what your cinematic artistic influences are. What are your answers? Let me just take a brief look at the other comments that are being posted. Okay. Alright, so artistic influences. That actually is a dream of mine, to one day be interviewed by the DP30 guy. I love that channel. I watch the interviews on there all the time. Artistic influences, Werner Herzog, I think, was one of my first major artistic influences. That I think his attitudes and like reading about him, seeing his films, how he really believed in cinema above all, and you work to create a film to bring a vision to life by any means necessary. Just how uncompromising Herzog is, how determined he is, how big and bold his vision is, and how he's just willing to do whatever is necessary to bring that vision to life. I think that was what first made me fall in love with the idea of being a director, of being somebody that, yeah, creates this giant canvas and who through sheer force of will makes something happen. I don't know that I have the kind of determination that Werner Herzog does, but yeah, certainly I think that's really important in filmmaking, and I think that was a really great lesson to learn early on, which is that there are going to be a lot of people in the business of filmmaking, because it is a business, that are going to tell you this is the way something is done. These are the rules you have to adhere to. This is how a movie is made. And you really have to be willing to step outside those rules to not only express yourself, but also to do something really different and potentially something really spectacular. That's why I admire directors willing to take a risk, willing to experiment, willing to try something different, even if it doesn't work. It's like they're out there grasping for those new ways of making a film, telling a story. And yeah, you have to be confident. You have to be determined. You have to be willing to say, like, I know those are the rules. I'm not going to adhere to them. I could potentially fall flat on my face and be really embarrassed, but I'm going to take that chance. So I think that was a really important thing to learn early on, that like you've got to stay true to that vision you have in your head. And going into filmmaking, if it ever does happen, I think that would be something that, yeah, I would be that would be very locked into my head, which, although it's a slippery slope, because you don't want to be not willing to listen to the people around you. You have to be willing to collaborate and to have a discussion and to listen to the artists around you who are very good at what they do, but also at the same time fight to maintain the integrity of your vision. And to know when to say, like, okay, yeah, I know that's the way it's traditionally done, but we're not going to do that. That's, to me, what it would be really exciting about filmmaking, and that's something that I learned from Herzog. Other influences, I'm trying to think of like the earliest influences that first really drew me into filmmaking. Apocalypse Now is definitely one. That's another, like, in kind of the same vein as Herzog, with a director that just had this huge vision that seemed to be impossible, but Francis Ford Coppola was willing to do whatever it took, push himself to mental and physical collapse to bring that film to life, to realize that spectacular vision. That was a lot of my earliest influences that really drew me into cinema and made me want to be a filmmaker. Are films and directors like that. Apocalypse Now, Werner Herzog, like Federico Fellini. I'm trying to think of the others, going way back. Ingmar Bergman. He was somebody that took a lot of really bold risks in the things that he did too. Like how Persona was one of the first films I remember that I saw that really made me think, like, wow, cinema is so much more than just a medium for entertainment. It's a platform for artistic expression. It is an art form. Persona was one of the films that really opened my eyes to that. And yeah, there are so many really bold risks taken in that movie too, like how Bergman will just hold on a single close-up for minutes at a time, and the whole like abstract opening montage of that film, the moments like when the film itself like breaks and has to restart, it was mind-blowing to me at the time. I loved it. Yeah, as far as, I'm sure there are more, but that's about all I can really think of right now. I'd say the two really big ones were Herzog and Apocalypse Now. That idea of being this visionary with this huge canvas that you were painting on. That's to me like what a director is. Somebody with this huge vision that is going to bring it to life by any means necessary. That's, to me, when I think director, that's what I think. That's what I want to be. It remains to be seen whether it's going to happen or not. All right, let's see. What are your thoughts on Mel Gibson's comeback? Some stuff to be said there, certainly. Okay, I guess this basically, it would really be a discussion of how much you think you should separate art from artist. And I think different people have different reactions to it. Some people can't make that separation, others can. I think for a lot of people, it's like there are times when you can make that separation. There are times when you can't make that separation. For me, I try as much as possible to do that, to make that separation. Like, I may not admire an artist personally, the way they conduct their personal lives, the things they say, the things they may believe, but I think who they are personally is something separate from the work that they create. Most of the time. There are other times, like like for instance, like something like Birth of a Nation. what that film is saying really isn't separate from the person who made it. Like, D.W. Griffith was somebody who, yeah, probably did have a lot of really deeply rooted racism, and he created a very deeply racist movie. But, yeah, it's also a really important work in the development of cinematic language. So, yeah, you really have to approach something like Birth of a Nation really carefully, really objectively. But in the case of Mel Gibson, yeah, he's definitely said some things, done some things in the past that I really do not agree with, that I really don't think is okay. And he's not somebody personally, just like as a human being, that he's somebody that I don't really admire so much. But as a filmmaker, as an actor, I think he's very talented. I think he's made some really terrific movies. I haven't seen Hacksaw Ridge yet, so I can't comment on that one. But certainly the films of his that I've seen in the past, like Passion of the Christ, I thought was very good. And I am not a Catholic. I am not a religious person, but I thought it was a very good movie. Braveheart, I thought was really good, and my personal favorite is Apocalypto. I thought that was a really terrific movie. An extremely exciting, visceral action movie, and also a really visually compelling recreation of the past, something that you really don't see on screen too often, the Mayan Empire from the Mayan perspective. That I thought was really daring, and the way how he filmed it all in ancient Mayan with non-professional actors. It's a pretty bold film if you really think about it, and he really pulled it off. Apocalypto I thought was a great movie. So yeah, and I know some people really can't make that separation, and I understand that. You know, I'm not going to say, I don't think it's something you can really force into somebody's mind. Like, no, it doesn't matter, like, the stuff that Mel Gibson has said or the stuff he might have done. Like, it doesn't matter. Just see that separate from the movies. Some people can't make that separation, and I understand that. So I think it's just something that, personally, we all, as individuals, it's a decision that we make. And, yeah, you just make that decision for yourself. If you can't separate it, then okay. Then, yeah, I guess you just... You don't have to watch his movies, or whoever else you might be discussing, like Roman Polanski or Woody Allen, other really controversial figures. Sometimes you can separate it, sometimes you can. So yeah, I think it's really an individual decision that has to be made. How do you feel about Greg Araki? I haven't seen too many of his films, but he has done films that I really like. Mysterious Skin, I think, is an incredible movie. I know I've talked about it before. And I really enjoy his anarchic humor, like with something like Kaboom, one of his recent movies. I really enjoyed that. Just what an impish fuck you that was. How he really just didn't care what rules he broke. The whole thing was just like a big joke, and I enjoyed that. But yeah, a lot of his work I haven't seen, like Doom Generation. What are his other ones? I can't remember the other ones right now. But yeah, of what I've seen, I have liked. Especially Mysterious Skin. I would highly, highly recommend that one. Let's see what else we got here. Rope by Hitchcock. I remember you saying you don't like Hitch. You mentioned big hits, Bird, Vertigo, North by Northwest, but I think Rope and Rear Window and Dial M for Murder are my real favorites. Rope was an interesting experiment, trying to do a film in real time, in these really long, like 10-minute shots, hide all the cuts, like the camera moves behind like an actor or something, and you hide a cut there, go seamlessly into the next shot, just try to progress the whole thing in real time. An interesting idea, an interesting experiment. But also, I would say it just has the same problems that I would list for Hitchcock's other films too. It just feels so dry. It feels so cold and distant, and like it is just a technical exercise. Yeah, I have this feeling over and over again with Hitchcock. I just can't get invested. I can't really bring myself to care about the story, to care about the characters. Sometimes I'll appreciate a shot or a sequence or maybe a witty line of dialogue, but otherwise, yeah, it's kind of a chore for me to watch a Hitchcock movie. Again, that's my own personal feeling, and obviously there are many that disagree, but yeah, that's been my reaction to pretty much everything of his that I've seen. Another question for you, Henry. What is your film watching routine? Do you eat snacks while watching, drink tea, have a notepad and pen? Are you more of a morning watcher, evening watcher? Let's see. I don't know if I have a routine. Just kind of whenever I have a moment. Most of the time I have films playing, like when I work on editing or something like that, I'll put a movie that I've already seen a few times on in the background, just kind of have it there as inspiration. When it's a film I haven't seen, yeah, most of the time I'll just when I have a free moment, I'll just pop it in and then just kind of sit down and watch it. Maybe maybe grab some snacks, a bottle of water. I don't know. I don't really have a routine, unfortunately. Yeah, it's just kind of whatever time of the day, whatever opportunity I have to watch a movie, I'll watch one. Casablanca is a bit too flowery for me. La La Land does not deserve the amount of love it receives. Have not seen La La Land, cannot comment on that one, though I know a lot of people did like that one, so that seems to me a rather controversial opinion. And Casablanca, yeah, that's considered one of the best films ever made. I think I have to agree with you a little bit on that one. I've never been that big a fan of Casablanca. I don't dislike it, but yeah, it's never been one that I've really been moved by. I don't get that involved in it. Hit the desk, sorry, I don't know if that's being picked up on the mic. Need to be more aware of my space. But yeah, Casablanca is kind of... It's not one that I would actively try to seek out again and watch again. It was like, I enjoyed it a certain amount watching it. I think I've seen it like twice, and both times it was just kind of like, yeah, good movie. But yeah, I wouldn't put it on my list of favorite films of all time. It's not one that, yeah, I would actively seek out to watch over and over again. I guess I can see why it's so admired, but yeah, for me it wasn't one I was particularly impressed by. Let's see, I'm not sure what some of the films being discussed in the chat are. Let's see. Unpopular opinion. Apocalypse Now is overrated and Platoon is better. I don't know that I would agree with that. But hey, everyone is entitled to their opinion. I like Platoon. I don't think Platoon is a masterpiece. It's not my favorite of Oliver Stone's. But yeah, it is obviously something that was very personal to him. Because yeah, he was in the Marines. He did experience a lot of that stuff for real in Vietnam. So yeah, I suppose in that way you could say Platoon is a more authentic film. More of a really personal film than Apocalypse Now, which is really like Apocalypse Now was more Francis Ford Coppola's idea of war, idea of Vietnam. It's not really grounded in a whole lot of realism, whereas Platoon is. So I guess depending on what your taste in movies is, if you like something more stylized, or if you like something more grounded and real, I guess Apocalypse Now and Platoon are two really good examples of those two different kinds of styles. Me, I guess I prefer more the grander, operatic Apocalypse Now style of filmmaking. I think my most divisive film opinion is a dislike for David O. Russell. Well, yeah, David O. Russell is certainly somebody that, if you watch those behind-the-scenes videos from I Heart Huckabees, and you watch him just throw those temper tantrums, I've heard stories from the set of Three Kings that, he got into fights with George Clooney. I don't know how much of that is true, how much of it is rumor or exaggeration, but David O. Russell seems to be one that is kind of easy to dislike depending on what you've heard of him. Personally, I love his movies. The one, or I guess two, that I didn't really like so much. The Fighter I thought was just kind of okay, and American Hustle I did not like. I thought American Hustle was really, really overrated. It was just, I felt like it had no story. It felt like it had no point. I didn't get invested in what was happening. It seemed like watching that movie for 2.5 hours, I was constantly just waiting for it to start, and it never did. It just kind of like continued sputtering and sputtering and sputtering, and then it was over. And it was just like, why did people love that so much? I was really underwhelmed watching it. Did not see what other people saw in it. But his other movies, I've actually really, really enjoyed. Three Kings, I think, is a masterpiece. That's one, like, yeah, the visual design of that movie, I think, is amazing. Russell used a lot of, like, different film stocks and styles and aesthetic choices to, like, split the movie into, like, different sections. Each section has its own look, its own like color palette, its own like camera aesthetic. I just love the way that movie is visually designed. It's such an experience. I think Three Kings remains his best movie, but I also really like I Heart Huckabee's philosophical comedy that I've never really seen anything like it before. So I think I Heart Huckabee's is really underrated, really underseen. I greatly enjoyed that one. And another one that I thought was kind of underrated was Joy. It was kind of like, it came out the year after American Hustle. Everybody had kind of, like, I guess already like, I guess, expelled all of their enthusiasm for David O. Russell and Jennifer Lawrence, and it was kind of like, it was just another one, so it was like, yeah, whatever. It felt like it went a little under the radar. But when I finally saw Joy, and I really, at first, had no interest in it because I didn't like American Hustle, it's like, whatever. And then I finally did see it, and I actually ended up really liking it. I thought Joy was much, much better than American Hustle. Let's see. Ooh, there's a lot going on in the chat that I missed out on. Considering Mel's bipolar and his history of alcoholism, I can separate the worst statements he made from my overall thoughts of him as a person, especially since he's repeatedly apologized. Yeah, I guess. I feel like maybe, yeah, sometimes the way certain people are dismissed, it is very judgmental. It seems like as a culture we've become very judgmental. We tend to assume the worst in people, it seems. And yeah, you never know if somebody, yeah, maybe was just, if they have a history of alcoholism, mental problems, who knows what goes behind any statement that is made. Yeah, especially on social media. I mean, you never know. So yeah, I do worry a lot. Of course, I'm against racism. I'm against prejudice and bigotry of any kind. I think, yeah, that is always something that should be fought against. But yeah, it's a tough balance to maintain, because at the same time, yeah, I don't want to just make snap judgments about people. I don't want to assume the worst about people, that if somebody says something, yeah, well, maybe there was some other motivation for that. Maybe they were just trying to make a joke and it was just in very poor taste and poor judgment. Who knows? So yeah, I try not to make those snap judgments. I try not to get into this like this culture of outrage that we're developing. I try to maintain objectivity and try to think like, okay, well, maybe, yeah, there's a certain kind of context to that I'm just not seeing. Yeah, I try to stay disconnected from that as much as possible. But yeah, at the same time, let me just state again that, yeah, I don't think racism is okay. I don't think prejudice is okay. Anti-Semitism, misogyny, yeah, I'm absolutely against all of that. But at the same time, yeah, restating things here, but yeah, I try not to make those snap judgments. Maybe I'm just misreading it. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it. I try to remain objective. Have you seen Once Upon a Time in America? I think it is beautiful, and in my opinion, a better film than the first Godfather. It seriously doesn't get the love I think it deserves. I don't know. Once Upon a Time in America, I did not enjoy. I've actually never really finished it. It's a very long movie, very dark, very violent. Yeah, I don't know. that's a tough one for me to comment on, because I haven't seen the whole thing. But yeah, there's something about that one that I really don't enjoy. Something about the way the violence is presented, how unlikable and amoral the characters are. It's a difficult one to watch. Yeah, maybe I just need to approach it in a different way, because it's so unapologetic about how awful its characters are. Whereas something like The Godfather, say, really tries to find redeeming qualities in all of its characters, their devotion to family, their loyalty. I guess when you watch something like The Godfather, it really does give you a certain sense of admiration for those characters, that they have a lot of integrity, while at the same time they're also gangsters and killers and drug dealers and all this other, or not drug dealers. Yeah, they're against drugs, aren't they? But yeah, they are criminals and killers. But still, when you watch The Godfather, you walk away from it thinking like, wow, those are amazing people. You walk away with a certain kind of admiration for them, the way it immerses you in that world and makes you see it on its own terms. Whereas Once Upon a Time in America, it's like, yeah, everyone's awful. Everyone's just a violent pig. And yeah, nobody really has any redeeming qualities in it. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I just need to approach it on a different level. I need to thicken my skin up a little bit to experience that one. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, some discussion of Casey Affleck, yeah, which I don't know a lot about the Casey Affleck case, so I can't really comment on that one. But yeah, that's another one. Another difficult separation to make. Some people can't do it. I understand that. The art isn't... I don't think you can separate artist from art. The art is an expression of the artist. You think that an expressive work is good. You can think that an expressive work is good, much like you can like a single quote someone says. Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, art is very personal. It's an expression of the person who created it. But I also think art is an expression of certain aspects of who that person is. I don't know Mel Gibson. I don't know, what his personal beliefs are. But he has, I guess one thing that is very controversial is he has made some anti-Semitic quotes. I don't know if he happens to believe any anti-Semitic beliefs, but when I watch a film like Passion of the Christ, I think that is very much not an anti-Semitic film. I think it's a film that is very much trying to understand all sides, that is trying to explore, all of the politics, surrounding, the death of Jesus and the decision, to condemn him to death. It doesn't try to dismiss anyone as a villain or as a two-dimensional evil figure. I feel like Gibson really handled that in an even-handed way. And some people accuse that film of being anti-Semitic. I don't think it was. As for him personally, I don't know. But I think, when you creative work of art, depending on who you are and the way you do it, I think you're trying to express those best aspects of yourself, of trying to, the way you see the world, the maybe like the person you want to be, or I don't know that I'm really finding the right way to express it, but I think filmmaking, artistic expression can express sometimes the best sides of people and the worst sides of people. It just depends on what the story is and what aspect of yourself you're trying to explore in that particular work. So art is very much connected to the person who created it, but it's not all of who that person is. It's presenting an aspect of that person. And it might be a good aspect, it might be a bad aspect. I don't know if I was totally clear there, but that's kind of the way I think of it. A lot of comments I'm missing out on. Let's see if I can find one more question to answer. Some talk about Woody Allen, it sounds like. David O. Russell is a hack. I know some people do feel that way. Knight of Cups is in my top 10 all-time favorite movies. Knight of Cups was one that I didn't enjoy so much, but I've been seeing a few other people saying that they really disagree with me on that one. But I guess that's the nature of Terrence Malick. If you're on that wavelength, it's amazing. If you're not quite there, then it can be excruciatingly dull. Most of the time I'm there on his wavelength, but Knight of Cups was really just went right by me. I did not like that one. I don't think David O. Russell being bad is too unpopular of an opinion. Let me see, find a good question to go out on. Okay. Let's go to the most recent comments that have been posted. Looks like there's a lot of discussion going on that I missed out on, so I apologize that I'm trying to catch up. People talking about the Coens, Big Lebowski. Okay. It looks like AI. Okay. Going into this too, one thing I wanted to discuss also was M. Night Shyamalan. I'm not sure, because that is certainly one of my unpopular opinions. I know a lot of people really love to hate on M. Night Shyamalan. He's a filmmaker that I've always really admired. And I know recently he's been kind of turning it around with like Split and The Visit. Those were both really successful, been getting really good reviews. So I think maybe he's starting to turn it around again. But he's always been one I've really liked, and I've always had to defend him to everyone that I've tried to discuss his work with. Last Airbender is bad, I will give you that. That's a terrible movie. Even stuff like Lady in the Water is really underrated. I think that's definitely one of my more unpopular opinions, which is, I don't like Hitchcock, but I do like M. Night Shyamalan, who, of course, took a lot of inspiration from Hitchcock. I think oftentimes I find that, like, the films and filmmakers that are influenced by Hitchcock, I like much more than Hitchcock himself. Like, there are a lot of, looks like the stream's having trouble again. Are we okay? Okay, what can I do to help this along? The Happening, The Happening is pretty bad. I will agree with that. The Happening is probably his worst movie, even worse than The Last Airbender. But what I was going to say, No Country for Old Men has a lot of stuff taken from Rear Window, like with the shadow under the door frame and the guy pulling the light bulb out. I can't remember if he does that in Rear Window, but I know you see like the shadow under the door frame in key sequences of both Rear Window and No Country for Old Men. But whereas Rear Window, I didn't really feel any suspense watching that. Hey, we're green again on the stream. That's good. But whereas I didn't really feel any suspense watching Rear Window, I felt a lot of suspense watching No Country for Old Men. So obviously Hitchcock has had a profound influence on filmmaking. It's just like, I find that the filmmakers he influenced I like a lot more than the guy they were influenced by. I feel like people took what he tried to do, the kind of blueprint that he laid down, and found ways to enhance it, found ways to make it more emotionally resonant. That's how I feel about it. But I saw somebody talking about AI, which that could be something worth talking about. Are you excited for the new Twin Peaks? I'm not a huge Twin Peaks fan, but I've said, I think previously, that it's been so long since Lynch has made a film that, I'm definitely going to watch the new Twin Peaks. Kind of see where he is now, because it's been more than 10 years since he's directed anything. So, I'm really curious to see that. See where he is currently as an artist. So that is something I'm going to watch. AI. I wonder... This used to be an unpopular opinion, but it's become somewhat vindicated lately. Spielberg's AI is a masterpiece, and the ending is one of the best ever. Oh, and some people talking about M. Night Shyamalan, too. Sixth Sense and Unbreakable were great, but after that, it really went down. I think Unbreakable is Shyamalan's best movie. I love Unbreakable. M. Night does deserve a good deal of his criticism, but he's got The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Signs, Parts of the Village, and I haven't seen The Visit or Split yet, but they're apparently good. Split is a great comeback, but the majority of his filmography is terrible. So yeah, a lot of divided opinions on Shyamalan. He's always an interesting one to discover. Everyone seems to have, a different take on him. And Spielberg, too. A lot of videos I've posted, he's been kind of mentioned, especially when we talk about overrated filmmakers. His name is one that tends to come up. He's one that I've always really liked. Indiana Jones came up in this stream. And yeah, I can understand that. He's made some of the most successful movies of all time. His name, his influence is so, prevalent in cinema history, in current pop culture. Like, I can understand, just getting totally sick of him and just thinking like, whatever, Spielberg's overrated, he's a hack. I can get that. But personally, I think he deserves the success he's had because he is an amazingly talented filmmaker. His ability to come up with stories, to create memorable images, sequences that people, when they walk away from the movie, you never forget those images, those sequences, those stories. The shark in Jaws, the drop of water in the cup in Jurassic Park when you hear the steps of the T-Rex. Indiana Jones and his hat and his whip. Close Encounters, the sculpture of Devil's Peak. God, what else? There's so many great ones. Spielberg, I think Spielberg is underrated. People get caught up in his popcorn reputation, but his biggest blockbusters do have a great deal of depth. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. He's not somebody that's just trying to make simplistic two-dimensional films. I think he really is he's a very intelligent person, a very intelligent artist, and he's really trying to explore different themes with each film, and really trying to put a lot of complexity, a lot of three-dimensional qualities into the work that he does. Sometimes it's just like a straightforward action film, like Indiana Jones. Not a lot of depth there. It's pretty much just an action-adventure story, but I think he does that probably better than anybody. He's probably the foremost filmmaker when it comes to depicting governmental paranoia, especially surveillance. Yeah, Minority Report, that sequence in Minority Report when they send the little spider robots through the building, that's a great sequence, a really great sequence. And you see them going in like while people are having sex, while they're sitting on the toilet. The total invasion of privacy, like that is a great just visual and metaphorical sequence. A really brilliant scene, and I think a really great movie. And AI, a really bold one. That was, of course, one that was originally going to be done by Stanley Kubrick that got handed over to Spielberg by Kubrick himself. And I think it's a great film in a lot of ways. The way Spielberg makes it like a fairy tale, Haley Joel Osment's performance, the world that it creates. I'm not sure in the final sequences, the ending, underwater, and then the scenes like that go really incredibly far into the future. I don't know that those quite work for me, but the way it explores, the nature of consciousness, and how this artificial child, whether his feelings, his emotions, his personality, whether it's as real as an actual person, I think it's very compelling. It raises a lot of interesting questions, and it's a really brilliant spin on the Pinocchio fable. This artificial boy who wants to be real, but can he be real? That's the big question. And just as a story, as a visual experience, like Spielberg's second to none. He really just draws you in. the way he creates the city, the like circus where they destroy all the old robots. I mean, it's a world that he creates in his films. It's oftentimes very tangible and very detailed. What do you, okay. Coming up on the end of the stream here. So I'm just gonna find one more. I saw one. Some people. I think the cinematic language Spielberg created is next to none. He's been imitated like probably no other. Maybe Tarantino since then. Yeah, definitely. I do think he tends to be too sentimental. Yeah, he's a sentimental guy. He likes to go for the tears at the end. Not personally, yeah, the kind of stuff I like, but I'm willing to look past that and appreciate what the strengths of his style is, what the strengths of his style are. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna go on to one last question, and then we can bring this stream to a close. Gosh, these are I'm seeing ones that I could probably go on for another like 15 minutes on. Zulovsky. AI reminds me of a Russian film called Electronic. I'm going to write that one down. Electronic. I've never heard of that one. I'll have to look it up. The brilliance of AI's ending is how it reverses the premise of the film. David is the closest approximation to humanity, and Monica is the artificial impression. I'd actually never thought of that before. Yeah. That is really interesting. Yeah, David does become the most real thing at the end. Sorry, spoilers if you haven't seen the movie. I apologize. But I'd never thought of the ending in that way. That makes me see it in a different way. A lot going on there in regards to wish fulfillment, our concepts of love, what separates us from the concepts of robots, etc. Yeah, I think AI is a fascinating film. Yeah, and you blew my mind a little bit with that analysis of the ending. I'd never perceived that before. Zulovsky. Okay, I'm not quite sure who Zulovsky is. Is he the one that directed Possession? Let me see if I can get my internet browser to work without crashing the stream. Zulovsky. Let's see. Oh, he is. Okay. Yeah, I can't go really into depth on him because I have only seen... Yeah, he directed... Thank you. If I just waited a couple of seconds, yeah. He did direct Possession. That's the only film of his I've seen, so I can't really talk about his overall style or his career because I've only seen one of his movies. I could really only just talk about that one specific movie. But Possession is a really interesting one. It's such a strange, such a intense movie. It's almost like it's at this constant level of hysteria in that film. I've really never quite seen anything like it. And yeah, the surrealism of the story. It's quite a unique examination of how would I define it? A breakup, relationships. It's covering a lot of that thematic territory, but doing it in a very impressionistic way of a couple, getting back together, jealousy, joy. I've only seen it, or I've seen it twice now. But it's been a little while since I've seen it, and yeah, just getting past the visual strangest of it to pick apart the thematic qualities of it can be a little difficult because yeah, there's some sequences in Possession that are really, really freaky, and a lot of the twists and directions it takes especially with the Isabella Johnny character, like what happens with her. I really don't want to spoil it, but yeah, where she ends up and what she ends up doing over the course of that movie is very disturbing. And I'm sorry I'm having such difficulty talking about this movie, but it's a tough one for me to examine because I've never really seen anything like it. It's difficult to put it into context, and I've never seen any of Zulawski's other movies, so I can't put it into the context of his work either. So I'm sorry for that, but it is an experience. It's quite an experience. I understand why a lot of people hate it. Exactly, it's one of the most emotional movies I have ever seen. It's almost draining to watch. It's constantly at this emotional fever pitch. There's always something distressing, or some kind of fight that's happening, or some kind of violence that's taking place. Yeah, it's relentless. It's absolutely relentless. People are hysterically screaming, their bodies are transforming. There's a lot of strange, surreal, freaky, intense stuff happening pretty much the whole way through of that movie, and I like that. I can really get into something like that. But yeah, as for being able to pick it apart, I'll probably have to watch it again and try to just see past the visceral intensity of it to see what it's really trying to say about relationships and love and jealousy and marriage, stuff like that. Or maybe it's a lot simpler than I'm thinking. I'm not sure. Not quite sure what to make of that one. Certainly compelling, though. One that draws me back to it, and one that certainly sticks in my head quite vividly. Certain sequences in that one, especially towards the end, with the strange turn it takes with their offspring, let's say. It's hard to forget something like that. Okay. The Devil is a good follow-up to film to watch. That's not the Shyamalan one, right? Devil, the one in the elevator? I'm assuming it's something different. The Devil. I'll write that one too. I'll write that one down too. And I think with that, kind of a weak ending, I'm sorry, but I think we'll bring this stream to a close. What film should I watch tonight? Good question. What am I going to watch? I'm probably going to watch Midnight Special, the Jeff Nichols movie. Zulawski. The Devil by Zulawski. Okay. I'll make a note of that one. Yeah, but I'm probably going to watch Midnight Special by Jeff Nichols. Seemed like that one kind of went under the radar. Another kind of underrated one. Been wanting to watch more of Jeff Nichols' films. He's been doing a lot lately that I have been falling behind on. So if you can get a hold of Midnight Special, then yeah, we can watch that one tonight. Okay, I think, we'll bring this stream to a close now. Thank you all for tuning in. I want to see you do DP30 interviews soon. DP30 interviews soon. Yeah, I would love to start interviewing filmmakers. That would be right up my alley. I would get to geek out. Get to do some embarrassing hero worship on camera. Yeah. I know there are certain filmmakers, if I got to sit down with them, I would just be in absolute awe. Thank you so much, all of you, for watching. Hope to see you again next week. We should be all good for streaming on Tuesday again. And I guess I got to do the last minute shameless self-promotion. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I've been trying to get work done on the third part of The Tourist for Unmade Masterpieces, but I haven't had as much time lately, but I'll try to get it done in the next week or two. Get that posted. Sorry I'm late. What did I miss? Oh, sorry. We're just wrapping things up. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Stay tuned for more Unmade Masterpieces stream next week, next Tuesday. And you can like me on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, If you have the opportunity, I would really appreciate it if you gave something to my Patreon. But again, not necessary. I just appreciate that you're here and you're talking film with me. I always enjoy this. So yeah, thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.